When we purchase a switch, we would like to see what's inside the switch. And let's see what's inside the Cisco Catalyst 9300. I unboxed this morning for you guys so you can see what's inside the box and whatnot. So as you can see here, we have the switch itself, that it's in the plastic already. And we do have a rollover cable, which is a DB9 with RJ45 in the other end. We do have the power supply of the switch here. This is a power cable for the switch, because without that we can't even turn on our switch. And then the last bag, it came some accessories, which means some brackets and some screws for the rack mount of the switch. And before we continue, I would like to show you guys that the power supply, and I did this pictures today for the purpose of this video, to show you guys how to install the power supply on the back. The back of the switch has two power supply, and as you can see here, this is one and this is two. And basically it came in a blank bracket, because I do not have the second power supply that I can use it for redundancy of the power of this switch. So this is the only power supply that I have it, which I inserted there. Don't worry about that, because it only fits one way, and all you have to do is just slide it from the back and you should be good to go. The next thing that we're gonna need is the cable to connect from the switch to the workstation that I have it here. So the cable that came with the switch, remember Cisco is still sending some switches with a DB9 connection instead of sending the right or proper cable, such as some switches come with a USB-C, some switches come with the DB9 cable. So in my case, it came with a DB9 cable with a rollover cable, and in this case, I had to use a DB9 converter, and that will give me the output of the USB that I can plug in into the workstation that I have, because my workstation does not have the DB9 connection. So basically, the back of the switch, this is a console port right here, and that will be the cable to the USB, and this USB here will be connected to a workstation that I'm using for the purpose of this video. And the next thing that I would like to show you is the emulator that I'm going to use today. It's called MobaXterm. If you remember in the last video that I did it, I used PuTTY for the explanation of the how to enable the SSH on the Cisco switches. And in this case here, I'm going to use MobaXterm, because I like this better, to be honest, than PuTTY, because this gives me more options, and it gives me more. It's more reliable to me, and that's what I like to use this one instead of PuTTY. So to show you that the switch is completely blank and there is no configuration on it, we're gonna try to connect to it with a serial cable. I already hooked up the serial cable into my workstation, and this is the connection that I have. So this part right here goes to my workstation, and this part right here, it's terminated on the back of the switch. So as you can see here, I named it COM4 serial connection. Remember, when you use this type of cable, no matter what you use in the workstation, you need to find out the port that USB is talking to. So to verify what port is connected, so you can have a successful connection between the workstation and the switch, we can go to the device manager, and in the device manager we will find the ports tab, and this is the cable that I'm using, the converter that is from DB9 to the USB, and it tells me that it's talking to COM4, to COM port number 4. So basically, when you try to use, actually, I'm gonna delete it from here, just so you guys know how this works. So basically, I'm gonna start a session, and in a session, as you can see, I have plenty of options here. I have SSH, Telnet, RDP. I even have the AWS for the Amazon Web Services, and I'm gonna choose the serial. Where is the serial? Serial, because that's the type of cable that we use it from the workstation to be connected to the switch. So if you look at here carefully, it says serial port. This is the number of the serial port where you're gonna be connecting from the workstation to the switch. And if I hit the right cable and the right port that I already have it plugged in from the switch to the workstation, this will give you the successful connection. The speed, it varies. Usually the default one is 9600 bit speed for this type of connection, and we're gonna hit OK. So this is a connection from the workstation to the switch, and if I hit enter here, that will ask me to do something, and this is saying please answer like yes or no, meaning would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog, yes or no. So basically, if I hit yes, then I will follow the rules and all lines that Cisco requires for the switch to be configured, meaning the management interface, any VLAN, any DHCP4 or version 4 or version 6. So you will follow whatever Cisco have programmed already there for you to answer and fill out the information. So that way you can configure the switch as well. But in my case, I am not going to go in an automated system from provided by Cisco. But in my case, I will choose no. This way will install and configure the switch in the way I want it. So if you look at the topics that I mentioned in this page on the right side, so the hardware requirement we already explained, the design of the switch, the design of the switch. Yeah, we can go back to that design of the switch, which explains the type of ports, that we have it in this switch. So if you look at the right here, this switch is a 48 port switch. 48 port switch. Every single port on this switch is also capable of providing the PoE, power over Ethernet. This is a 48 port switch. And some of you might ask, what is this box right here that is on the right side? This is what we call an SFP module. SFP module. That stands for small formable pluggable. And we'll talk about that in another video. But basically, for the purpose of this video, I do have an SFP module, which I can show it to you guys. This is an SFP module that will be connected to that slot to provide an extra 8-port SFP. SFP, if I remove this rubber right here, you can see that this is not a random RJ45. This is an SFP. Only fiber connection can go into this SFP module. So this, we usually use this when we have a building with like 2-3 floors, and for the manner of speed connection, if we want a fast speed connection between the floors in our network, we install the fiber cable, and then we can transfer the data from floor to floor via fiber through this module right here. So this is an SFP SFP module that will be connected right here, and that will provide an extra 8 ports, which in our case is 10 gigabyte speed for each one of them. And let's go back to the configuration of the switch, and we'll show you that how to install the basic configuration in the switch. So first thing that we're gonna do is layer 3 switch, routing capable. Yes, this Cisco Catalyst 9300 is a layer 3 switch primary. Remember, again, Cisco Catalyst 9300 is a layer 3 switch, which means it can do the routing and it can do more. Basically, it can act as a brain of the network before or after the firewall. I don't know, some people might put after the firewall. I like to put it before the firewall. And it also can do routing. It can do inter-VLAN routing capable, which a layer 2 switch cannot do. But remember one more thing, that this type of switch can act as a layer 2 as well. So you can program this switch to act as a layer 2 or to act as a layer 3, because it already have the features for the layer 3 routing capability and more. So the next thing is the difference between the user mode and the privilege mode. So Cisco has 2 types of modes when you log into the switch. It's the user mode that we call user access mode, and the privilege mode, which allow you to go to the global configuration mode. And the best thing to understand is if you look at this, the greater sign right here, the greater sign, we know that we are in the user mode. And if I hit the question mark, that will show you that this is the only thing that you can do if you are in the user mode. The user mode allows you to check and play with all these commands that you see it right here. That's the user mode. If I want to jump from the user mode to go to the privilege mode, then I will hit EN, that stands for enable, and you're going to hit enter. So notice that the sign changed from the greater sign. Now we have a pound sign. Now we have a pound sign. So the pound sign represents the privilege mode or the global configuration mode, whatever you want to call it. So the pound sign, when you are in the pound sign, you can do pretty much everything with the switch. You can program the switch. You can configure a lot of stuff which you can't do in the user mode. And the next thing that we're gonna jump on is the startup configuration versus a running configuration. So right now, if I hit show configuration, you're gonna see that it's gonna come up the text where it's saying the startup config is not present. That tells you that the switch is completely empty. There is no configuration whatsoever. So if I hit the other command, which is the running config, show running config, then yes, you're gonna see some configuration in there. And this is not a configuration that I did it for the purpose of this video. This is a configuration that every single Cisco switch comes with it. We call it a default configuration. So Cisco prepares every switch to have the minimum of security layers into the switch. The minimum security layers into the switch. So such as like address family here, or VRF, or the crypto key certificates, and the numbers of the interfaces and all that. So I'm going to go all the way to the end just so you guys can see it. And as you can see, it even have the spanning tree, which is good. And this is all the interfaces. Like I said, this is a 48 port switch interfaces. And as you can see here, we do have an extra 8 ports for the SFP that we can use it for later on. Of course, when we purchase the SFP module, if we need it for the fiber connection in between the floors, and like I explained and mentioned before. And the next thing that I would like to try to configure with you guys is the host name. So remember here, the host name, the host name right now in the default is a switch. But imagine if we have like 10 switches and we leave the host name switch on every single one. Then when we go to program like stuff that we need, we don't know and we can't follow up like in which switch we did the configuration and which one we did not. So in that case, to better understand and to better track our network, we name every single switch with a host name, a specific host name that will give us a better understanding of where the switch is, what's the name of that switch, the location, and stuff like that. Instead of just gathering the MAC addresses and deal with MAC addresses instead of the host name of the IP address of the switch. So in this case here, we're going to configure the host name. So to go in the configuration mode, we have to type in configure terminal, or we can use a conf t to go into the configuration mode. So remember, configuration terminal is the same thing than typing config t. And if you want to type it a little fast, instead of doing configuration like letter by letter typing on the keyboard, all you have to do is press C on F and then hit tab, and that will complete the sentence for you. And TR, let's say tab, will bring and complete the sentence for us, which in our case is terminal. Hit enter. So to configure the hostname, the command is hostname, and for the purpose of this video, I'm going to name this switch in my name, in the channel name. So we're gonna do Jordan Seidai, hit enter, hit end, and you can see that the switch name now, it's not switch like it was before, but it's in my personal name. You can change this to any name, any desired name, and that won't be a problem. All right, the next thing would be the username and the password. So the username and the password, we definitely need it, not because of the security layer, but it is some type of connection that need the username and the password So remember last video I explained how to enable the SSH on the Cisco switches. So SSH, which stands for Secure Shell, and the Telnet. Telnet is another way of a remote connection from a workstation to the switch, and basically from the switch to another switch, and vice versa. But in my case, I want to use the SSH because SSH, the difference between Telnet and SSH is because Telnet sends the data in a plain text, which is not good, and the SSH is different because it encrypts the data, encapsulate them, and then it send it on the encrypted way mode, encrypted mode. That is more secure, and is definitely more reliable than Telnet. So in order for you to use the SSH, you're definitely gonna need to program it, a username and a password of the switch, and together with a VTY, which we're going to talk with that username VTI, username and password, the VTI, which is the virtual teletype that is allows the remote connection between the workstation and the switch. So to create a username, the command that you use here is username. Oh, I'm gonna. You have to go to the global configuration mode. Username, and for our case, just for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna use admin, and the password, I'm gonna use a simple password. Remember, do not use this type of password. You always need to create a unique password and basically a complex password for the security purpose. So for the purpose of this training, we're going to use the username admin and the password capital P @SSWRD. And as you can see now, we do have a username and the password, and also we're going to hit enable password for this. So enable password will require every user, when it goes to the enable mode after the user mode, to enter the password that we just configured. And the next thing that we have to program for us to allow a remote connection is the VTY. And the VTY is it's in a two section, is 0 to 4 and 5 to 15. In my case, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use 0 to 15, which will cover the whole thing. This way I don't have any problem. So always in the configuration mode, we type line VTI 015, and as you can see that it changed to the config line instead of the configuration mode. So in the configuration line, I only need 3 commands that would allow me, actually you need 2, but I like to use 3. You need 2 commands that would allow you to communicate remotely from the workstation to the switch if you have a proper port open and a proper VLAN communication, or if needed, inter-VLAN communication. So I mentioned before that I want to use SSH. I do not want to use Telnet. The way to disable Telnet is by enabling the SSH. Automatically in the new technology that Cisco is using, is by enabling the SSH, automatically is disabling the Telnet. So the way to program the SSH right here in line VTY 015, all you have to do is use the command transport input SSH. Hit enter and you're good to go. The next thing that you have to program here is login local, and what I like to do is the login secret. And the SSH is enabled. So we configure the SSH, we configure the host name, we configure the username and the password. Now we have to configure the domain. So the command to use to program the domain is IP domain name, and I'm just going to use a random domain, which it is not necessary to be valid. This is just the way the Cisco wanted. So IP domain name is my name and .com, and the next and very important is the crypto key to encrypt the communication in a remote session. So the next thing that we have to program here is the crypto key generate RSA. Hit enter. It asks us how many bits you want to create this. By default, as you can see, is 1024. So remember, the crypto key that generates the RSA key, its minimum is 360, and the maximum can go to 2048. So as big of the number you put, the 2048, the longer it's going to take to create that key for you. That's the session key, whatever they call. So in our case, I'm going to use the 1024, which is good enough for us. And as you can see, is okay. And this is why I like the MobaXterm, because it highlights uh, the main topics for you, like such as okay, like it shows us like everything went good in our programming. And I mean, in the party, you can change some colors and fonts and all that stuff, but I like more MobaXterm because it gives you more options. More options, yes. The next thing that we have to program here to have a better security, we gotta use the password encryption. So to do the password encryption, here we use the command servlet password encryption, and you hit enter, and now our password is encrypted. So remember that I use the password for the username and password. I use the password as P@SSWORD. If I had show running config without using the service password encryption, that password will show in the running config, in the startup config or the running config. The password, the letters is going to be same. So everyone that a hacker could go there, you can see the password of the switch, and then we have a problem. So that's why we use the service password encryption that will encrypt that password when we hit the command show running config or show start or show configuration uh, when we finish this configuration of the switch. And let's hit end for a moment. And now we're going to create a VLANs, and we're going to name the VLANs, and also we're going to assign an interface ports to a VLAN. So right here, I do have a RJ45 connection that is plugged in on the back of my workstation that I'm going to be using to create a remote session between my workstation and the switch. So I'm going to plug in my workstation in port number 1. And as you can see, by default, it comes up any ports, any connection that you put it in, which I don't like it. That's something that we should leave when we finish the configuration of the switch. Any unused ports needs to be administratively down. Again, any unused port needs to be shut down. You cannot leave a port that is not in use blank, because as you can see, I just plug it in my workstation, and by default, every single port is up. So create and name VLANs. We're going to create 2 VLANs. We're going to create the VLAN 100 and we're going to create the VLAN 200. So to do so, we need to be in a configuration mode. We hit config T, and after that, we're going to use the command VLAN 100, and we're going to name this VLAN as management. And then we're going to use VLAN 200, and we're going to name this VLAN, let's say, as a studio. And we're going to hit end. I plugged in my cable in port 1 into the switch. Like I mentioned, and in the topics here, we have it like assign interfaces. So I assign the port to a particular VLAN where I want it. So right now, I want to put the port 1 of the workstation into management VLAN. This way, I can communicate with every single other VLAN in the network. So to do so, we're going to use config T. As always, remember, configure terminal and config T, it's the same thing. So the command to assign the interface to a particular VLAN is this. First, we have to go to the interface itself. Interface In our case here is number 1, so it's going to be gigabyte 101, and we're gonna make this as a switchboard port, and we're gonna say switchboard access VLAN 10, and we're gonna use the word, oh, I'm sorry, VLAN 100, not 10, because 10 does not exist. Just create it. So anytime you you type a number of the VLAN that you didn't configure, the switch automatically will create it for you. So in our case, it just created. It gives you the warning that it does not exist, but it also gives you the option and tells you that I'm creating the VLAN for you. Don't worry about it. So I'm going to assign the switchboard access VLAN 100. All right. And we're going to use the command no shutdown. This is very important because the port can always go in the shut mode or shutdown mode, especially when they have a arrow disabled state or misfunction in the port itself. So no shutdown will tell the port not to shut down. And the next thing that I'm going to use here, I'm going to assign an IP address to the management VLAN that I want to use for. So to do that, I'm going to use the VLAN 100, and of course we name that as management VLAN. We're going to assign an IP address to that VLAN. This way I can communicate with remotely from my workstation to the switch. So we're going to use the interface. You can use short commands like interface VLAN 100, or you can use the full command interface VLAN 100, and then the next command that we have to use. And now we are in the VLAN 100. So now, as you can see, VLAN 100 it changed state to go up, which is good. Now we're gonna assign an IP address to the VLAN 100, and in this case, I'm gonna use a very basic default IP address, which is 10.10.10.1 with a subnet mask of /24, which is 255.255.255.0. And of course, we're gonna use the command no shutdown for the VLAN as well. So we did create the VLAN. We did name the VLAN. We did assign the IP on the management VLAN. So the command to show the VLANs is show VLAN. And if I hit show VLAN, and that's what I like from MobaXterm, because it highlights and gives you a different color on the numbers and letters here. And as you can see here, let me just delete that. The VLAN 10, because it was created by mistake. So remember, we created VLAN 100 and VLAN 200, and also I assigned the interface that I want to use it from my workstation to the switch in order to have a remote connection. So as you can see, the interface here is 101. That's the interface we configured for the VLAN 100. Just to see the IP of the VLAN that we assigned the IP, then we do show IP interface brief, and that will give you the whole details of every single interface or the VLAN. Excuse me. And together with IP address, the status of the and the status of the interface, the protocol of the interface, the name of it, the method of configuration, which can be manual or DHCP, or can be unset as well. And as you can see here, the VLAN 100 is the VLAN that we assigned the IP address of 10.10.10.1, and as you can see, the status is up. So if I want to try to ping the switch from my workstation, we're gonna make sure that we do have. I did configure it, but I'm just showing you that we have to assign an IP address to our workstation, and that's 10.10.10.2. And of course, it's /24 with 255.255.255.0. And I just put a random gateway 10.10.10.1, which in our case is the management VLAN on the switch. And let's see if we can ping that VLAN from the workstation. So we're gonna hit ping 10.10.10.1, and let's see if we can ping that's okay. So first it sends the acknowledge to the switch that hey, it's me, and who have this address and stuff like that. So by the MAC address and filtering and all that, then it recognizes the workstation. So I'm gonna try to ping it one more time, but in this case we're gonna use the -T, which stands for continuous ping. And as you can see, so there is no drop anymore. Like we have the first two drop is until it finds the switch. So to verify that our connection is working, to verify all the configuration. But before we go there, we forgot to do one important thing, and that's to save the configuration. Every configuration that we did, we need to save it. So to do that, we have two ways of doing this. The first command to do that is copy, run, and config the startup config. So you hit yes and you hit enter. And as you can see, it's building the configuration for us, and it gives you the okay that the configuration was saved. Another one is it's a write command, and that does the same thing. It's building the configuration. So by saving the configuration, now we need to test our work. So we do have a host name, we do have the VLANs, we do have the interface assigned, we do have the SSH enabled, we do have the VTY configured, we do have the domain, we do have the crypto key configured. Now we need to test that everything is working as we configured. So if you look at on the left side, I did name this. I'm gonna name this as a COM4, and I'm gonna use the word serial cable. Serial cable. So this type of connection that we have it right here is a serial cable. So I am going to use another section, and in this time, instead of using the serial tab here, we're going to use SSH. So in the SSH is ask you for the remote host and the specific username. Remember, the IP address of the switch is the one that we configured, and we're going to specify the username, which in our case is admin, and of course SSH communicates in port 22 versus the telnet, which communicates in port 23. So we're going to hit OK here, and as you can see, it's asking me for the password, and I'm going to type the password here. Yes, this is for the MobaXterm. We're just going to use scan1. Does not mean okay. I will change it in a matter of seconds. All right. Now you can see. So the good thing that I said that I like MobaXterm is because this allows you what PuTTY does not allow you. So in this case, I'm going to split, and I'm going to use two terminals, and I'm going to use this one right here for the serial, and this one for the serial, and this is for the oh, you can load in the split mode because I didn't sign in. Okay, good. Single terminal mode, and then so I'm gonna hit enable here, and as I told you before, when you do the user mode and the username and the password, and after that I did enable password. So here we're gonna have to use the password that we created, and here we go. We are in the switch via remote connection. So as you can see now, the serial cable is completely out, and we still have connection because we're using the remote connection. So we're gonna see the show configuration, and as you can see before, it didn't give us anything because nothing was configured. So now you have everything that we configured in the interface, including the VLANs, including the switch port and the gigabytes with it. And I think that's it for today's video, and I see you in the next one.